Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm going to recap a 2019 Korean action horror movie called The Divine Fury. This movie tells the story about an MMA fighter who gets a suspicious wound that leads him to an exorcist. However, he finds out that he gains divine powers to cast out demons from the wound. So, how does he manage it? Will he be an exorcist? Or will he continue his career as an MMA fighter? Let's find out together. It starts with Yong-hoo, a boy who lives with his father after his mother has passed away. They are such a typical devout Christian family. Yong-hoo's father is a policeman. He usually goes to work at night. That night is the last time Yong-hoo sees father. There is a lover in a car who is suspected of being drunk. Evidently, they are possessed by demons, and the demon inside of the man intends to kill father. Suddenly, the man drives crazily while father is still holding the car's door. The man beats father many times until father becomes unconscious and falls off. In the hospital, Yong-hoo bursts into tears when he sees father's body full of wounds. Then, he prays in the church with a young priest as it is the last thing that Yong-hoo could do. Unfortunately, his father died that night. Yong-hoo mourns and is devastated. Yong-hoo blames father's death to God for not answering his prayer. He hates God and doesn't believe in God anymore. 20 years later, Yong-hoo has become a famous MMA fighter. Even now, he still hates God and despises the cross. Every time he sees a cross, he hears voices that urge him to kill somebody as a revenge to God for letting father die. Consequently, that is what he experiences that day. In the airplane, while Yong-hoo is sleeping, father comes up in his dream. Father leads him to an empty room. There, he sees a cross statue and those voices start urging him to break it. But the cross statue is stuck to his hand and burns itself. Yong-hoo immediately awakes and notices that the hand that was used to grab the cross statue is bleeding. As he arrives in South Korea, he goes to a hospital, but there are no injuries that cause the wound. Knowing that the doctor doesn't have the answer, Yong-hoo's driver suggests Yong-hoo to come across a fortune teller. It is revealed that the voices he hears are from the demons that surround him. The necklace from his father has a positive energy, and so does the wound. But the fortune teller is uncertain how to heal the wound. Therefore, the fortune teller orders Yong-hoo to go to a nearby church. Yong-hoo goes to his old church. Inside the church, a priest and his apprentice are trying to exorcise a man. Turns out, the man gets angry and hurts them frighteningly until the apprentice leaves the priest to force the man alone. The priest is strangled and cannot do anything. Suddenly Yong-hoo comes up and pushes the man away from the priest. Yong-hoo beats the man several times. When the man attempts to beat him, Yong-hoo defends himself with one hand and strikes the man instead. Unexpectedly, a fire burns the man's face. It is a heavenly fire. The priest flings holy water upon the man quickly, and it burns out the demon inside the man. Meanwhile, Yong-hoo is startled to see that the wound on his hand can burn the demon. The priest explains to him that the wound on Yong-hoo's hand is a holy wound. It is rare, as it will only be given to a good believer. But Yong-hoo resists it, for he is not a believer of God. At the same time, the voices are urging Yong-hoo to kill the priest. But the priest manages it well. Then, the priest prays in Yong-hoo's house and hides a cross necklace to drive the demons away from him. Meanwhile, the apprentice waits for the priest. Apprentice feels bad about himself and apologizes for leaving the priest, but the priest soothes him and encourages him instead. The next day, Yong-hoo wonders why the wound isn't bleeding anymore. But then, he sees the cross necklace behind his father's photo. Instead of throwing it away, he decides to return it. Yong-hoo can't find the priest in the church. Turns out, the priest doesn't belong there as he was directly sent from the Vatican. Someone gives Yong-hoo the priest's address, so Yong-hoo goes there, only to hang off the necklace and leave. On the phone, the priest is given an order to cast out demons in another place, but it seems that the master of demons is in Seoul. The priest chooses to go back after completing his mission to catch the master of demons. When the night comes, a man walks into his nightclub to meet a security agent. The man is the dark bishop, and he realizes that the agent has a bad intention towards him. Therefore, the Dark Bishop plans to take the security agent's soul. He starts his small ritual, consequently the security agent leaves in a hurry. Afterward, the Dark Bishop goes to a small room where there is a door to a dungeon. The dungeon has a small pond, where the Master of Demons lives. That is the place where the Dark Bishop does rituals to take a human soul for his strength. The Dark Bishop murders the security agent by taking his heart. In the same night, Yong-Hoo's wound starts bleeding again as the necklace has been returned. The next day, Yong-Hoo comes up to the priest. They tell each other their stories. That time, Yong-Hoo realizes that the priest is a good man. He sees a resemblance of father in priest, and decides to help the priest cast out demons. The priest has an order to cast out a demon inside Sujin, the Dark Bishop's girlfriend. Sujin tries to manipulate them, but when the priest pours holy water upon her, the demon shows up. Sujin strangles the priest and throws him against the wall. Meanwhile, Yong-Hoo tries to take her down, but Sujin corners him, and confesses that she was the demon that possessed the man who killed his father. It makes Yong-Hoo lose his senses for a while. But then, Yong-Hoo puts the holy wound on Sujin's head, and the priest flushes her with holy water. The demon is burned out by the heavenly fire. Right after that, the priest notices something, then he tries to explain it. The priest realizes that Yong-Hoo is just angry at God. It is impossible to exorcise without believing in God. On the other hand, the Dark Bishop notices that the demon inside Sujin has gone and he is getting weaker. He decides to take Sujin's soul. As the ritual has started, Dark Bishop struggles to take Sujin's soul. The priest prays and succeeds to set Sujin free from Dark Bishop. Since then, the priest and Yong-Hoo become close. Meanwhile, the Dark Bishop is ordered to kill them. The Dark Bishop sets a plan. This time, he uses an orphan who just got bullied. The Dark Bishop comes and soothes the kid. Eventually, he makes the kid trust him, and the demon takes over the kid's body. Right after that, the Dark Bishop shows up to Yong-Hoo. He pretends to be the apprentice and fools Yong-Hoo that the priest just uses him. The Dark Bishop knows that the priest could get killed easily if the priest does the exorcism alone. The next day, the priest gets an order to exorcise the orphan kid. He calls Yong-Hoo many times, but Yong-Hoo neglects it. So, the priest goes by himself, while Yong-Hoo is getting an offer for the biggest MMA match. The priest enters the room where the kid has been prayed by the nuns. The priest confronts the kid with his ring to cast out the demon. Easily, the demon leaves the kid's body. But other demons enter the kid's body, the army of demons, Legion. On the other hand, Yong-Hoo can't stop thinking about the priest, so he refuses the offer and goes to help the priest. Meanwhile, the priest attempts to cast out the demons one by one with an exorcism cross. Unfortunately, the priest becomes weak as there are too many demons to handle. Right after that, the kid strikes the priest, then he beats the priest brutally until the priest is unconscious. Seeing the priest is being beaten, the nun takes the exorcism cross to scare him and protect the priest. But the kid jumps towards the nun and strangles her. Suddenly, Yong-Hoo shows up. He picks up the kid and throws him violently. But the kid comes back quickly, attempts to strangle Yong-Hoo. Yong-Hoo manages to defend and take him down. Lastly, Yong-Hoo closes the kid's eyes with the holy wound and flushes the holy water, causing the legion to burst into flames. Afterward, the kids at the orphanage hug Yong-Hoo gratefully. Yong-Hoo realizes that he doesn't hate cross anymore, and when he sees a cross, it reminds him of the priest instead. In the dungeon, as the plan has failed, the Dark Bishop murders the kid painfully in order to take his soul. In the hospital, when Yong-Hoo and the priest come to see the kid, suddenly the Dark Bishop appears. Yong-Hoo sees him running downstairs, so he chases after him. However, it is just an illusion and the Dark Bishop takes the priest hostage when he is vulnerable. Yong-Hoo comes back and the Dark Bishop demands him to deny his faith to erase the holy wound. However, the priest doesn't want it to happen and endangers his own life instead. Yong-Hoo brings the priest to the church with a heavy heart. He lets the apprentice look after the priest. Besides, Yong-Hoo prepares himself with a robe that is blessed by the Pope to fight the Dark Bishop. As Yong-Hoo arrives, the guards try to take him down, but he confronts them fearlessly. Every time he beats them, they easily come back, because they are all possessed by demons. Yong-Hoo is able to avoid their strikes and beats them back, but when they attempt to strike Yonghu together, he cannot manage it. So, he escapes for a while, to pour the holy water on the holy wound. When the guards begin to confront him, he kills the demon inside them by putting his hands on their heads one by one. The Dark Bishop sees that all the guards are taken down, so he runs away to the dungeon. Suddenly, one last guard shows up blocking his way to the Dark Bishop. Meanwhile, the Dark Bishop is getting weak, so he asks the Master to give him strength. Unfortunately, the Master orders him to stab his heart as sacrifice. Outside, Yonghu gets furious and confronts the last guard, then kicks him several times. With one quick move, he manages to knock down the demon inside the last guard. The Dark Bishop hears Yonghu entering the dungeon, and he becomes scared. He immediately stabs his heart and falls down into the pond. Suddenly, something explodes inside the pond, and the Dark Bishop appears. But, this time, the Master has taken the Dark Bishop's body. Yonghu begins to beat him several times, and puts the holy wound on the Master. But, it doesn't work out. The Master is too powerful and stronger than him. Yonghu cannot manage him, he needs more power. The Master sees that Yonghu becomes weak, he bites Yonghu's shoulder, knocking him unconscious. Luckily, in his subconscious, Yonghu meets his father. Their father gives him strength with a heavenly fire, and it wakes him up. The Master attacks Yonghu again, but this time Yonghu is able to avoid it, and beats Master with the heavenly fire. The Master becomes furious and scratches him several times. But when Master tries to scratch Yonghu's body, his finger gets burned because of the robe that Yonghu wears. Meanwhile, Yonghu is getting weak after hitting a handrail. But, he begins to avoid every scratch well, also counters and corners the Master. Then, he wears the priest's holy ring. Yonghu gives the Master one last strike upon the Master's heart, and it is finished. Yonghu pulls the thing that connects the Dark Bishop to the Master and burns it down. Consequently, the Master dies. Yonghu immediately goes to the church to find that the priest has completely healed and has been waiting for Yonghu. In the end, the apprentice holds a letter from the priest. Here, it is revealed that the priest has gone to the Vatican with Yonghu. The priest encourages and hopes that one day the apprentice will be an excellent exorcist like him. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.